Hi, this is Kristen Logan from the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Personalized Learning. Welcome to a quick tour of how the South Carolina Teaching Standards 4.0 element Teacher Knowledge of Students connects to the Measuring PCBL Toolkit. The purpose of this video is to provide a short introduction of how the Measuring PCBL Toolkit outcomes can help measure growth in the element of teacher knowledge of students. If you haven't watched the welcome video in the header of the crosswalk document that explains our overall purpose, we suggest watching that before you continue with this video. The Measuring PCBL Toolkit focuses on 8 outcomes that we believe are distinctive of a high-quality PCBL system. Support is the PCBL outcome we will focus on today. The toolkit was created to help make measuring PCBL impacts as accessible as possible for classroom teachers, school coaches, and leaders, and anyone wanting to document the effects of PCBL practices for learners. Let's dig in and learn more about the connections between the 4.0 element, teacher knowledge of students, and the Measuring PCBL Toolkit outcomes. If you are wanting to measure your impact in the 4.0 element, teacher knowledge of students, you could use one of the following Measuring PCBL Toolkit outcomes: support, belonging, engagement, or self-efficacy. We know that a teacher's knowledge of students, both academic and non-academic, is critical in students having success in their learning. When teachers are knowledgeable about the whole child, which includes both academic and non-academic strengths and areas of growth, a teacher is better able to develop a relationship with their learners and therefore can better tailor instruction and the learning experiences to each learner's needs. Now, let's look to see how you could use support to measure impact in the SCTS 4.0 element of teacher knowledge of students. Let's level set for a minute. When we say support, what do we mean and why is it important? According to ANSES in 2003, support can be thought about as the extension of help by teacher leaders coupled with students' understanding that they can count on that assistance. When learners have the perception that their teachers care about them, strive to create a well-structured learning environment in which expectations are high, clear, and fair, and are capable of providing the support when needed, their learning experiences feel positively supported. We also know that support for students is most helpful when it is meaningful, relevant, and timely. One thing that has always been true, but especially now as we are coming out of our COVID years, not all students need the same types of support or the same level of support. When students get the support they need, generally, levels of engagement increase. The indicators for the SCTS 4.0 rubric element, teacher knowledge of students, and the PCBL outcomes support can work together to help teachers collect valuable data about their students' perception of how they are being supported as learners. For example, on the 4.0 rubric, teachers are expected to display an understanding of each student's anticipated learning difficulties and consistently provide differentiated instructional methods and content to ensure children have the opportunity to master what is being taught. The support data collection tool has survey questions that ask leaders if they believe their learning needs matter to their teacher and if their teacher notices when they are stuck. Using the survey questions to find out how students are feeling about the support they are receiving in class can uncover some of their perceptions on how well the teacher knows them as learners. This data then in turn can be used by the teachers to inform and grow their instructional practices as they become more knowledgeable about their students. Let's click into the crosswalk to see how we might use the data collection tools in the Measuring PCBL Toolkit. Let's imagine that I am a middle school teacher who has multiple classes, which means lots of students to get to know. This year, I've chosen to set a goal to work on the SCTS 4.0 rubric element, teacher knowledge of students, because I want to know how well my students are feeling about how well I know them as learners and if they feel like they're being supported throughout their learning. I see that I have 4 different outcomes that I can use to measure impact. I know there's a strong connection between teacher knowledge of students and support. So I think I'm going to focus on support to learn a little bit more. I see that there are several prompts and questions that I can use once I'm in this support tab. I notice that each prompt has a code for which level best fits the students that I'm teaching. Since I'm a middle school teacher, I want to make sure that the prompts that I select fit where my students are as learners. I might pick 4 prompts that I can use with a Likert scale, like, I believe my learning needs matter to my teacher. I believe I will get the support I need when I need it to reach the learning goal. When I get stuck, I know my teacher notices and cares and can help me get unstuck. And maybe even my teacher doesn't explain why we have to learn certain things in school. Then I might also pick 2 open-ended questions, such as, when you feel unsure or stuck during a lesson or about a task, what do you do? Or, how do you feel about asking for help from your teacher? Once I made this survey, I would give it to one or all of my classes, depending on what I was trying to measure. After getting the survey results back, I could analyze the data by myself, with my coach, or with another colleague to see what I notice and wonder about what my students are saying about their engagement. If I needed to follow up and do some small group interviews, I could. Then I could use the data to make some changes to my instruction based on what my students said. If my SLO was focused on this same 4.0 element, I could even use these prompts as pre and post data related to one of the competencies that I might be working to integrate into my class. If you're wondering if you can do this with more than one outcome at a time, the answer is you can. You can use each of these tabs on the menu right down here to pull from if it relates to the SCTS 4.0 element you're trying to measure. Now, what if I'm a school leader or an instructional coach? How can I use the same crosswalk? Well, if your school has identified a few of the SCTS 4.0 elements that are your focus for the year, then you could ask everyone to focus on the same one or give them a choice between a few. Then, as the coach or school leader, you could create a school-wide survey using the prompts and questions from the data collection tool that apply to the SCTS 4.0 elements that are your focus. Have each teacher give the survey to one class during a given class period and then reflect on that whole school data or individual class data when you're all meeting in your PLCs. Teachers could set their own growth goals around that data from their students. That is one way you can leverage the connection between the SCTS 4.0 rubric element and teacher knowledge of students and the data collection tools in the Measuring PCBL Toolkit. Now it's your turn to think about which Measuring PCBL Toolkit outcome you want to focus on and explore the survey prompts and questions. We love to partner with educators. Please remember you can always reach out to your regional coach by going to personalizesc.ed.sc.gov/contact-us.